Hello and welcome to Hanratty on Karate. I was going to carry on with the series on the books Meditations and Violence, and I did get 2 more books gifted to me, Preparations for Violence and How to Prepare for the Unexpected, which seems a little kind of an oxymoron to me. Trying to prepare for the unexpected is really not believable. The other thing that preparing for violent situations is just basic psychology that most instructors give out in their own self-defense classes anyway. The books are interesting in their own right. They're well written, definitely well researched, come from a very good knowledge base, personal knowledge base and experience. And they do give a lot of information, but it's information that has been gone through before. Now, the biggest thing about all 3 books, and they all deal with the same subject, by the way, is even though the author kind of puts down kata and traditional training as being useless in a violent situation, I have to disagree on a couple of points. It's not entirely useless, all right? It may not work for some people. To be honest with you, mindset and attitude work just as well, but you gain that attitude from your training. And very often, your cultural and social pressures as you were growing up and how you were nurtured, in other words, usually give you your attitude to violence or whatever comes about, depending on where you were brought up. If you were brought up in a violent situation or a tough city like Glasgow or Liverpool, I'm not sure of the tough cities around Canada, they all seem very nice people to me. But certainly Glasgow and Liverpool were extremely tough places, and the cultural attitude was definitely look after yourself. Don't expect the police to intervene. Now, a big part of these books is not doing anything that would get you sued, because this is coming from an American where everybody sues everybody there. I mean, stub your foot on the sidewalk, you're looking for $1 million. Okay, and it's the same all over. But very often, and this is what I don't like about this situation, is the defender gets taken to court and becomes the offender. There's a lot of time in this book devoted to how not to get taken to prison. And I've been in quite a few street fights myself, and they're definitely a survival thing. And my idea was hit the guy as hard as you can, as fast as you can, as many times as you can, and then go away. Get out of there before anybody else comes. If it's a one-on-one, fair enough. If it's more than one-on-one, and it very often is, then you take out as many as you can, as quickly as you can, keeping yourself in one piece, and then get out of there. You deal with the adrenaline dump probably 6 blocks away while your heart's doing 600 beats a minute or something, and you calm down and isolate it. And the thing with violence and in that kind of respect is it's going to live with you for months, usually. You'll go over it and over it and over it, and it's up to you when you learn to control it, how you learn how to control a large adrenaline dump. And as I say, this stuff sticks in your memory. You keep second guessing, I should have done this, I should have done that. But you have to come to terms with yourself and realize that what you did, if you got out of it in one piece or relatively unscathed, then you did enough. And that's fine. That's it. You just accept it. All right? Don't let anybody else's actions affect you adversely. Anyway, what I really wanted to get into, as I say, I was going to do a review of those books, but they're pretty hard reading, to be honest with you. When you kind of know what's coming up ahead, there's not much of a plot. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about a little bit today, because I'm getting older, be coming up on 81 next month, and I've just had a hip procedure, a second hip procedure. Your training changes as you age. Your karate changes. As you get older, you tend to move differently, and basically there's not many people around your age that are training at this age. Now, for me, I'll probably always train as much as I can, and I think I still have something to offer the younger karateka. I don't offer sports training. I only offer traditional training, in the fact that we use karate as a self-defense mechanism where you condition your body so that you can hit and possibly disable your opponent with one blow if you hit in the right place with enough power. This isn't involved in sport karate at all. Sport karate is a whole different kind of training. You're going to get a different kind of physique than you will in traditional training. Your body's going to be a lot stronger. Your impulses are going to be a little bit different. So with your perception, timing, distance, everything's going to be a little bit different in traditional karate than it is in sport training. The other thing is there's very few, if any, do sport karate after, say, 50 years old. You don't see them. They may go into masters tournaments and stuff like this, and I did. I went into a masters tournament at age 50. I took first place in kumite and second in kata, but it's different. And looking back at those old videos where I was doing masters tournaments, and I was the first Canadian masters champion in 91, and I won it for 3 years running, I moved differently than I did when I was younger. Of course I did. My timing was a little better. At 50, my timing was spot on. The way I moved, anticipation, setting up the techniques, I could see them a little better at, say, 45, 50 than I could at 26, 27, or even in my 30s, which is usually when most karateka are at the very best in competition. Is usually about 30 to 35. No, most of the really, really good fighters that you can think of in the karate world usually knock off the competition around about 30 to 35 or thereabouts. Some do go on, but most of them knock off them. It's kind of like football or soccer, if you like, in North America, but I hate that word soccer. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why they use it. But as I say, it's different. Your body changes. I think your greatest strength, if you like, probably your body's at its strongest between about 35 and 45. I know I was around about 40. I probably had muscles on my eyelashes. And I'm only a little guy, but I know I stood out. If I went swimming or something like that, I was pretty ripped. I'm not now, but then again, I'm twice the age now. But you definitely have to move differently. You have to watch what you're doing with your body. Unfortunately, I'm quite arthritic, probably because I was born just after the war and suffered through food rationing and all this kind of stuff. That really doesn't give you a good start. However, you play the cards you have and you deal with it. And so I've always suffered a little bit from arthritis, which is why I've had a lot of joint replacement procedures and, painful episodes throughout karate and stuff like that. And so what you do is you cater to these and you learn to make it work for you in different ways. I certainly employ a lot more body shifting now as I get older than I used to. And I'm quite good at it. I'm quite effective at moving to the outside of an opponent. When I say moving to the outside of his attacking arm or away from his lead hand to the outside of his lead hand, if you like. So if he's, say, making a Kizamizuki, a lead hand punch, I would move over to the side of it so that he has to turn to get his other hand moving. This just comes with experience, and I always tell my students when they're sparring, always try to get outside the guy's center line, but direct your attacks into the central median. This way you'll be a lot more effective. And this just comes with experience. Also, you can control the body a lot more effectively if you do move outside of the lead hand. And then, you've got sweeps available to you. Depending on your distance, you can block the hand, push him off balance, all this kind of stuff. The back of the head becomes a little bit more accessible if you want to use a Haito. That's a ridge hand attack, which is very, very effective. And I've scored a few times with that in competition. But it's also quite painful if you're using it in a fight. Anything to the occipital is going to immediately shock the nervous system, especially if it's a strong blow. And this comes a strong blow and power and speed, and definitely body conditioning is going to show itself here. If you don't hit the Makawara with every weapon on your hand, or you don't condition your hands to deliver these techniques with power, you're going to find that you're going to probably get more injured than the person you're trying to hit. And that's also not covered in those books. You should try to condition your hands by hitting something that's going to give you at least resistance. All right, so a heavy bag or, a Makawara, even one of those bob dummies, although they're really expensive. But, hitting them is going to give you a feeling of resistance to what you're doing. Even a partner with pads, where pad work, where, you're going to actually hit the pad, you're going to feel that resistance. And nothing will improve your kicks better than, say, working on a bag or a dummy or with a partner. Kicking fresh air isn't going to tell you much. It'll probably tell you how flexible you are, but it won't tell you how hard you're kicking, not until you hit something. And that will tell you how hard you kick, and if your balance is better, it's going to withstand the momentum or the inertia of your kick hitting a person and then coming back to you. So all these things, they basically come under conditioning the weapon, which probably I've mentioned before. And it becomes really relevant as you get older, because your body probably can't take working the Makawara every day. You may do some damage to your joints with repetition. Now, repetition injuries, particularly in older karateka, become very prevalent. My right shoulder is quite damaged, and that's with constantly punching gyakuzuki. You just get used to it, you put up with it, and you work around it. And it's not hard to work around it. It's just being cognizant of what's happening with your body and what you can do and what you can't do. I don't have very many high kicks. Some people do. They were maybe really flexible when they were younger, and they've maintained that flexibility. Nice if you can do it, but we're not all built the same. So you have to go to other avenues, other techniques, other bits of strategy that you've developed yourself over the years. Now, to develop this strategy and develop these techniques, and what's going to help you in delivering your techniques to an opponent that's coming at you and stuff like that, is sheer experience. And believe it or not, experience builds upon experience. You learn from your mistakes. Unfortunately, you can't teach other people to learn from your mistakes. They have to learn from their own, and you'll find that out. But definitely learn from your own mistakes. Pain is a tough teacher, but it is a good teacher. You put your hand on a hot stove, you won't do it twice. Okay? So you learn something. It's the same when you're in a confrontation, or if you're just sparring in the dojo. You make a mistake, make sure you don't do it again. Conversely, if you can score with a technique, and I don't see this too often in competition, but you see a person go in and they'll maybe score a beautiful maigeri or gyakuzuki, and then they'll back off and they'll try something different. I don't know why. Why would you not just go and see if that guy learned from his mistakes or didn't learn? The other thing is, the more you do something and the more successful you are at it, then the more you should do it, okay, and become more successful at it. Build on your successes and learn from your successes as well as learning from your mistakes. I think that's a valid point that a lot of people don't come across when they're training. It's like, get a favorite technique, learn how to use it as well as you can. People will become scared of it. They'll even maybe come to expect it from you, and then you can bring in something else. Just a little bit of deception, or shizoe was it, if you like. Okay, so you want to look for longevity in karate training, and the reason I've been training a long time is I refuse to accept other people's opinions on what my body can do and what it can't do. Many years ago, I had quite a serious operation on my spine, and they removed a few bones from C3 down to C7, which is the higher vertebrae, from just below the occipital down to about the shoulder. And they took the facet bones out, which exposed the spinal column. Now, I had to have this done because, being arthritic, the bones were growing like a calcium deposit inside, and so I had to have the operation. The operation was very successful, by the way, but they told me I would never be able to train again, which was something that absolutely devastated me for about a week. And then I thought about it, and I thought, well, I don't really believe that. I know my body, I know what I can do, I can protect my neck, and I just carried on doing it, and I've been doing it ever since. Now, you tend to move differently as you get older, all right? You're not maybe got the ability or spring or bounce in your step that you had earlier. It might be harder to use that plyometric effect you get from the dojo floor as you're moving in and out and then bouncing into a technique. I tend to be a little bit more steady. I don't bounce as much. I've never been a real defensive striker or a defensive partner, if you like, or a sparring opponent. I tend to go forward and I tend to close distance very quickly. And it doesn't really bother me if I'll catch a little tap on the way in or something like that. I know that's not real at sport, okay? I'll catch a little tap, but what I'll do is I'll get in close and I'll frighten the life out of you by what I do in close. And having some street experiences, I can tell you that when you're getting close and when it's a confrontation that's either you or them, you tend to use techniques that maybe we'll never ever see in a karate dojo. I've never heard anybody in any club that I've ever been in apologize for biting a guy's ear off, but I've seen it. I've seen old-style fighters bite somebody's nose off too. I remember years ago when I had an apprentice, I was a mechanic. I had a couple of apprentices, and one guy come in on a Monday with his face all swollen up and a row of stitches right across his nose. Somebody bit it off, but they managed to pick it up and get him to the hospital, and he got it sewn back in, but it was an old guy. I didn't have much sympathy for this apprentice because he was giving the old guy some cheek, and in Liverpool, old guys are pretty tough, and he didn't take it, rushed in, got a grip of the guy, buttered him in the face and bit his nose off. That's the kind of violence that you come up against. You won't come up against that in a dojo, I guarantee it, but in the street, yeah, you might, and you learn to deal with it, okay? And karate will give you the techniques to deal with it, believe it or not. But it's having the instant reaction and using those techniques to deal with a situation like that. Anyway, so as you get older, your karate's going to change. Look at these old guys, look at how they move, look at maybe the techniques they've dropped and the techniques they've kept. See what you can learn from them. You know, as a young guy, you're going to bounce all around them, you're going to maybe wear them down. They may not have the stamina or the cardio that you have. Doesn't mean to say they can't close the distance real fast and do you a lot of damage. It doesn't take a lot of cardio to get in close, butt somebody in the face and then bite his nose off. It doesn't take a lot of stamina. It just takes the attitude to do it, okay? And that's probably what's kept them in karate for 50, 60 years. Like, I've been around that long, so there's others that have been around longer than me. So learn from them. All right, and take care. Anyway, this is Hanratty on Karate, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Look forward to talking again. Bye.